being on the run for 30 years.
The president of the EU rotating presidency calls the attack on a residential building in Dnipro a war crime as the death toll rises above 40.
Italy's most wanted mafia boss, Sicilian Matteo Messina Denaro, has been arrested in Palermo in Sicily. The 60-year-old had been on the run for 30 years. The arrest was made in a private clinic where Denaro had undergone treatment. He was escorted and taken to a secret location by police. He was a young man when he went into hiding, and the only known photo of him was this one, which dates back to the early 1990s. On Twitter, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says that it's a big victory and it shows the state is not giving up in front of the mafia. He was sentenced in absentia to life imprisonment for murder and was on the Interior Ministry's list of the 6 most wanted criminals in Italy. For many years, hundreds of police officers and carabinieri have been involved in the hunt for Italy's most notorious fugitive.
The arrest of Matteo Messina Denaro, Italy's most wanted mafia boss, is going to have a huge impact on the future of Cosa Nostra, one of the country's most powerful criminal organizations. According to several prosecutors and informers, Denaro holds all the information and the names of those who were involved in some of the most high-profile crimes committed by the mafia. Well, I asked Giuseppe Antocci, the president of a mafia research center, what's his take on this. Mr. Antocci is a mafia attack survivor and currently lives under police protection. Take a listen.
What happened is very important from a psychological point of view because it frees people and makes citizens understand that they can trust the state and that they should stay strong and act as a team when it comes to reporting mafia crimes. It's important to never surrender to mafia-type organisations because they steal people's hopes and dreams and they control people's freedom. If Denaro decides to cooperate with the authorities, it would shed new light on some critical events in which Denaro was involved. It will be important to gather critical information as well on the type of protection Denaro has used to live undercover in the past few years. When such events like this arrest happen, it means that something inside Cosa Nostra hasn't worked properly. Denaro's protection hasn't worked the way it should have. This must have created panic and confusion within the organisation. Because of that, criminals who are still at large might make new mistakes. But this also means they will have to reorganise themselves in such a chaotic environment. If prosecutors are following these developments, which they are, this could turn into a lucky chance for them.
The death toll from the Russian attack on a residential building in Dnipro continues to rise. More than 40 bodies have already been recovered from the rubble, and 30 are still missing. All of them were in this building hit by missiles last Saturday, in what is one of the worst attacks on civilians since the beginning of the war.
Innocent civilians, including children, lost their lives or were wounded in this horrific attack. So let me be very clear. Intentional attacks against civilians are war crimes. Those responsible for war crimes will be held to account.
Moscow denies responsibility for the attack, saying it was the result of Ukrainian counter-missiles and air defense. The Russian armed forces do not strike residential buildings or social infrastructure facilities. They hit military targets that are obvious or camouflaged. While the Ukrainian army impatiently awaits the arrival of new Western tanks and other armoured vehicles, Russia boasts of victory in ruined Soledar. The Russian army and the Wagner mercenary group both claim to have taken the eastern city, but Ukraine says that fighting there continues.
German Defence Minister Christine Lambrecht has submitted her resignation. Long viewed as one of the weakest links in Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government, critics say the 57-year-old was out of her depth. But the Social Democratic Party politician says there was a, quote, months-long media focus on her person, and says this interfered with objective reporting and the discussion of German armed forces issues. She maintains she decided to step down because the work of armed forces personnel had to be in the foreground. Nevertheless, Lambrecht was accused, amongst other things, of a lack of expertise, not dealing well with the mishaps of the Puma infantry and clumsy public appearances, as well as taking her son along in a government helicopter. Most recently, she was slammed for a New Year's Eve video in which she commented on the war in Ukraine in front of a fireworks display.
In cities across Europe, climate activists have vandalized car industry billboards in a coordinated campaign to highlight the sector's environmental impact. In Brussels, the action was timed to coincide with this week's International Motor Show. The campaigners covered manufacturers' posters with their own version.
Those large oversized vehicles that they're promoting on Brussels billboards, they don't mention the climate impact of those billboards. So this artwork is quite simple. Takes the car, adds the climate message, and it's the French call it a détournement of the original advert.
The action was organised by Extinction Rebellion with the groups Subvertisers International and Brandalism. More than 400 mock billboards have appeared in London, Berlin, Frankfurt, Paris and other cities and towns. The campaigners say they want more robust government policies to regulate the advertisement of environmentally harmful products. In the transport sector, only very small CO2 savings have been achieved so far. The statistics speak for themselves, hence actions like this one here in Brussels.
The trial of 5 men accused of negligence leading to the deaths of 135 people in a football stadium crush began on Monday. The deadly crowd surge in October in Indonesia's Malang city was one of the world's worst sporting disasters. An investigation found that police fired 45 rounds of tear gas into the crowd at the end of a match, causing panic that led to the stampede. The mother of one of the victims called for harsh punishment of the suspects. Please uphold justice for ordinary people like us so that we can believe in justice in Indonesia, rather than just saying social justice for all Indonesian people. That is our hope for our president, Joko Widodo. 3 police officers and 2 match officials on trial were charged with criminal negligence causing death and bodily harm, and could face up to 5 years in prison if found guilty.
They are the last of the Lutzerat activists. Hanging from a bridge, some in wheelchairs, waiting for the German police to remove them under the watchful eye of the press. It happened in the early hours of Monday morning, long after the authorities had officially ended the eviction of thousands of activists protesting against the expansion of the controversial brown coal mine in the area. We continue the struggle because unfortunately coal, lignite, is still being exploited in Germany. The hole is getting bigger and bigger, and although there is no more life in Lutzerat, the machines will continue to destroy it. So we want to make a mark and say that we will continue the struggle. Out in the open, hiding in tunnels or perched in the treetops, between 15,000 and 35,000 environmental activists protested in Lutzerat last week. The police began evicting them on Wednesday and officially finished on Sunday.
Italian actress Gina Lollobrigida has died at the age of 95 at her home in Rome. She was considered to be one of the greatest stars in the history of cinema from the golden years, and was one of the highest profile European actresses of the 1950s and early 60s. Starring in European and American films, Lollobrigida worked alongside greats such as Rock Hudson, Humphrey Bogart, Burt Lancaster, Tony Curtis and Frank Sinatra, to name but a few. Some of her many films were Trapeze, BAFTA-winning Bread, Love and Dreams and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Gina had thousands of admirers and many lovers, but never found Mr. Right despite marrying once. She also reinvented herself and became a photojournalist in the 1970s before embarking on a political career. She unsuccessfully ran for election for the European Parliament for the Democrats in 1999. Local media reports say she had been admitted to hospital recently.
I'm so scared.
Why are you scared?